Welcome back to another voiceover video. You guys really seemed to like the last one, so I thought might as well keep them going, you know? And conveniently, Matthew, another KSP YouTuber who you probably know, recently started a new community challenge video thing, so I thought, you know, I might as well get involved, make a submission. And those of you who've seen Matthew's community challenge videos before, you'll know that I've been involved beforehand, so, you know, I thought might as well get involved in this one. But it's a little bit different to the usual community videos that Matthew does, because usually it's a collaborative thing where we all work together to make one big thing, but this time around it's actually each individual person makes their own, you know, mission, and then the best one wins in a set number of categories. Basically the idea is that each person creates a mothership, a lander, and a surface base for Laythe. And then basically the best one out of certain categories, like the cheapest in Kerbucks, the coolest looking, you know, that sort of thing, basically wins. So, you know, I was kind of trying to go for looks, as you can probably tell, as opposed to anything else really. But you know, I think it turned out pretty well. This lander here is sort of based off the lander from Avatar, you know, the VTOL one. Because honestly, I thought it just made a lot of sense, because you kind of need horizontal movement when you're trying to, you know, do the ascent from Laythe if you're using rapiers. But when you're landing, you want to be able to do it vertically, because it's kind of uneven, it's not particularly flat. I mean, nowhere on Laythe is particularly flat. I mean, some people, you know, get away with doing horizontal landings on Laythe, but I think I didn't really want to risk it, is the thing, so I decided to go for a VTOL approach. It works pretty well. I mean, the only issue I've had with it is when landing, sometimes there's not really enough thrust and it starts to descend a bit too fast, but that's not really an issue because you can just tap the mode, change it to the rocket mode. Now I'm working on the base, which is this little neat can thing. Basically the idea is that because it was required as part of the challenge to have the base, the lander, and the mothership all part of the same craft, I kind of put this base in a little can, and it kind of folds out. And this serves two purposes, because the folding obviously keeps it stowed when it's in the can, but it also allows it to kind of flatten against the ground regardless of how flat it is, because there's a little bit of bend in the hinges, they give a little bit, so it allows it to be pretty flush to the ground regardless of how flat the ground actually is, which is helpful. And it ensures that there's proper good surface contact, and it also means I don't have to use landing legs, which I despise because they just end up sliding. Another thing is how it's laid out. So it's got these four wings, one's a garage, another one is an ISRU, one's an airlock, and then the last one has a claw, which is basically how you dock it to the Tavokan spaceplane, which is what the spaceplane's called. So they kind of all serve a purpose. It's not like they're just all for some crew compartment, which would be kind of boring, I felt. And I'm also kind of happy with how it deploys, because it's this kind of multi-staged, you know, setup. Basically it comes in, it's got RCS on the top, well it will do in the end. It's got RCS on the top to keep it pointing retrograde when it's not in the air. It's also got fins, and then when it gets to a low enough altitude it deploys the drogues, which point it, you know, retrograde. It then deploys the main chutes, and then when the main chutes have opened fully, it then drops the drogue, like physically drops the drogue, and the heat shield. And it's quite satisfying. It deploys the legs to keep it upright, and it's got solid retro motors, a bit like a Soyuz capsule, to slow it that little bit down before it hits the ground, because it usually comes in about 10 meters per second, and then it just pops the can, it deploys the arms of the wings, and you know, all the stuff opens up. It's really quite satisfying to watch, and I mean, you'll probably see it in the cinematic at the end. Like I mentioned before, there's a little garage with a little rover in it, and this rover kind of, it's not good, to put it lightly. It's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad little thing, but to be fair, it's so small, I couldn't really make anything better. So it's you can't go very fast or it falls over. It's got two seats, and like you just saw there, it just tipped over, and it doesn't handle super well either, because the steering's not great. Matthew, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, I just hope you didn't have to use the rover that much. I did briefly consider the concept of possibly doing a floating base, like having a boat instead of a rover, like a seaplane instead of the regular plane SSTO that I did. But I just kind of decided against it. I don't really know why, I just thought it'd make more sense to have a normal base. I didn't really think about it that much, but looking back, it's probably a good idea because I needed the ISRU, because the spaceplane needs to be refueled. It can't go off just the fuel stocks it has alone, because it needs to do like 10 trips minimum in order to get all the crew onto the base, which I know is a lot. I realise that that's quite a few trips. But you know, it's not unreasonable, I think, and it would take a long time, but that's fine, it's kind of designed to. But yeah, like I said before, the orbiter, which I'm actually building right now, the Mothership, has a total 25 crew, like max crew capacity, and then the surface base, it only has 20 crew capacity, and the lander, the VTOL SSTO, it only has 2 spare slots, ignoring the pilot. So yeah, like I say, 10 whole trips back and forth to transport all the crew. You can see I kind of went a bit overkill with the Delta V at first because I didn't realize I was on the wrong Delta V setting. It was set to, you know, sea level instead of vacuum. So I tuned it back. I did have some drop tanks because it helps with, you know, saving Delta V. And I set it up in such a way where the both the base and the spaceplane are attached in line with the thrust axis, so to speak. So the center of mass stays in line with the thrust, it doesn't turn, although it does a little bit, but like I think that's just because I couldn't keep it perfectly in line. So it's fine, I just have a bit of RCS to counteract that. I think now's a good time to kind of talk about my idea of what purpose this craft serves, so to speak. So the kind of lore behind Matthew's challenge is that it's sort of like a mass exodus from Kerbin to Laythe. And in my eyes, the reason why this is such a small vehicle, I mean 25 people, it's not tiny, but it's pretty small in terms of a colony ship. The reason why is because it's not the only one that would be sent. I think that it would be one of many that would be sent. They would all be identical to this, and that's why they all have they each have like all the things they need to get running. They have the base, they have the people, they have the spaceplane, and then they can set up a bunch of different colonies across the surface of Laythe, and it's kind of like not putting your eggs in one basket, so to speak. And on top of that, I don't think that the base would be fully finished. So you could send a whole 25 people in the spacecraft, like in the Mothership. You know, 5 people would have to wait on the Mothership for a little bit, but that's fine because I've designed it in such a way where it can generate both Laythe gravity and Kerbin gravity super easily by just spinning end over end. The idea is that the base that's sent down by the Mothership is just a seed base, and using in situ resource utilization, they would just build more base modules and expand the base and then have kids. It would just grow from there. Well, that's enough commentary from me. I'll go back to my roots a little bit and let you watch the cinematic.